What's up YouTube? This is John Helm with Helm Wood Shop and Smithy, back with another knife making video. I am currently in the middle of this Damascus hunting knife build, but there was a problem with the shipment of the handle materials, so I'm stuck. I can't really do anything until they show up. So in the meantime, I'm going to start a side project, and it's mostly just going to be for me to learn and practice some skills that I need to develop. I would really like to get into making high-end chef's knives. The reason being is that I spent several years working in kitchens and restaurants, and I still really enjoy cooking, and I have pretty good knife skills in the kitchen. And because of that, I can really tell what is a good chef's knife and what isn't a good chef's knife. Unfortunately, my skill with using a chef's knife is a lot better than my skill at making them. Right now I can make a good chef's knife, but it's definitely not high-end. I'm going to try a couple different techniques that I haven't ever used before, and hopefully they turn out well. If they don't, at least I'll know not to use that next time. And as long as I do learn some valuable lessons, I will consider this a success. If it winds up being a good knife, then great. Hopefully I'll sell it, or maybe I'll give it to my wife or something, but that's not the goal here. Anyway, so let's head over to the bench and design this thing. Form is function in all things, and of course designing a knife is no exception to that rule. So there are a few different variables that you need to keep in mind when you're designing the profile of your knife. And the first one is balance, especially for a chef's knife. You need the point of balance to be right at the base of your cutting edge. The reason for that is that when you pinch the blade and then you grip the handle with these three fingers, that point is right in between your index and middle finger, which means that you can move the knife in either direction very easily, and that makes for a fast chopping knife. Of course, you also need to worry about your edge geometry and the shape and comfort of your handle, because if either of those are off, the knife isn't going to perform well. With that in mind, this profile went really well. As you can see, the point of balance is just maybe about an inch forward of the cutting edge of the blade. And that's good, because once I grind in these bevels, it'll be slightly handle heavy. At that point, I'll put a metal bolster here to add some extra weight right where we want it, and I can drill however many holes are necessary to get this thing balanced just right. In the past, I have nailed two of these things and done all right on the third one, and you can tell in the performance of the knife. So that's my goal today, is just to nail all three of those things, because if I can do that, I'm a step up from where I was previously. So now that my profile is roughed in, I'm gonna do a little bit of measuring, I'm gonna do a little bit of marking, and then I'll take it over to the drill press and put some holes in this tang. I know this looks like a cat turd in a cup, but believe it or not, it's actually clay that I purified out of the soil in my backyard. I'll probably make a video at some point showing y'all how to do that. If you live in an area like here, the ground is mostly clay. It's really easy to harvest as much as you want. So I'm just gonna mix that up with a little bit of water into a slurry. All right, now that our slurry is ready, I'm just gonna coat the whole blade in a really thin coat of it. So this real thin layer of clay is gonna help with oxidation on the blade, and it'll also help the refractory cement adhere to it. Just gives it something to stick onto. Also, it's a good idea to fill up any tang holes that are gonna be in the area where it's clayed, because it's easy to get the clay out, but it can be pretty hard to get refractory cement out of those holes once it's in there and it's dried well. Now that the clay's had a little bit of time to set up, I'm gonna start laying out my pattern with this refractory cement. So I'm gonna start by these little tendril things that people put on here. Now, I heard a couple people say that doing this doesn't do anything, and then other people say that doing this really helps you control how the hamon comes out. I don't know who's right, I don't know who's wrong, but if it does nothing, then it doesn't hurt to do it. So I'm just gonna lay these on here, and hopefully it does help the pattern develop and make that hamon look cool when I'm done. And then once I have those on, then I'll go back and lay a thicker layer along the spine. I want this line to be pretty wobbly as well. I don't want it all to be just an even stripe, you know, I want it to be a wavy line. Alright, that refractory cement is on there. It was really hard to apply. It's real thick and granular. I'll have to look up maybe some other products that people have been successful with. But it's all on there. I'm gonna let it cure overnight, and then we'll come back in the morning and heat treat. All right, it's the next morning. I got it really early before the sun came out so I can see the colors for my heat treat better. So forgive me for sounding like I'm half asleep, because I still am. This refractory cement's set up really well. It feels really sturdy. I'm hoping that it stays on the blade better than the clay that I've used in the past. While I was waiting for this to cure, I got bored and I made 3 other knives. And I tried slightly different techniques applying the refractory cement to the blades, so hopefully it'll give me some feedback on which way works the best for me to get the hamon that I'm looking for. Let's head over to the forge and get this done. The quenches went pretty well. I picked up a little bit of a warp in the chef's knife, and it's significant, but it's not irreparable. So hopefully I can fix a majority of it in the temper cycles, and then after that, I'm sure I can grind out whatever's left, because I still have a lot of grinding to do on that blade, which is why I left it fat for the heat treat. Now they've been sitting there for a minute and they're cool enough to touch, I'm gonna scrape off all that clay and we'll file test them. And if the hamon turns out nearly as cool as that pattern after the quench, I'll be super happy. Oh, it's hard. It is very hard. That's what she said. Very nice. Can you see that warp? Just a little bit right here at the tip. I threw in the leg vise after I was able to scrape some of the clay off the blade, and it definitely helped straighten it out a little bit. So I'll just clamp it down to a flat bar when I put it in the oven to temper. Just got these out of the temper. I did two 2-hour-long cycles at 400 degrees. I was able to get about 90% of that warp out of the tip of this chef's knife, which I was very happy about. But then I started inspecting these blades very closely, and it looks like I have a couple of edge cracks. Of course, they had to be in my 2 favorite blades out of the batch, the chef's knife and this little tactical tanto knife. So I don't know how deep they are. I don't know which direction they start running once they get underneath the surface of the steel. The only way to find that out is to grind them flat and inspect. Hopefully I'm able to get rid of them. If not, hopefully I can reprofile the knives a little bit and get rid of it. If not, I'll put them in the scrap pile and eventually they'll go into a canister Damascus. So keep your fingers crossed for me. Let's go grind the flats and see what we find. Both of these knives do indeed have cracks in them. This blade has cracks here, here, and here. And this knife has a big whopper of a crack right on the edge. These two blades, on the other hand, came out perfectly. So for now, I'm gonna take the broken ones over to the bench and see what I can come up with. So here's what I came up with for the tanto. And the chef's knife is going to become essentially a large utility or a small boning knife. All fixed. I think I got all the cracks out of them, so now I'm going to start flattening them out, and once we get to a little bit of a finer finish, we'll be able to see if there's any cracks remaining, if there's any more reprofiling that needs to be done. And looks like I'm going to be okay. These have all been profiled and flattened off on the disc grinder. This chef's utility knife I'm actually going to set aside. I'm going to make a chef's knife to go with it, and I'll use this as a template. So I'm just going to leave it as is until I get that other blade cut out and ready to handle. That way I can do all the processes on the handle at the same time, and they'll wind up being identical. These three are ready to scribe and grind in some bevels though. So let's get started on that. I don't even know what this video series is about anymore. It was going to be about making a chef's knife, and then I made 3 others, and then hamons, and anyway, I'm just going to tell you where I am and what I'm going to do because I'm running out of time. So I have this one sanded down to a 1500 grit finish, and it looks really nice. You can kind of see the hamon, but it is not at all prominent. So I'm worried that it's not going to be that great, but I'm going to hold out hope until after the etch. So first thing I'm going to do is clean this off with acetone. Then I'm going to put it in a hot vinegar bath, and I'll periodically wipe off all the oxides with some quadruple aught steel wool. And then after it's etched, I'm going to take some polishing compound and buff it out by hand with a microfiber towel. I've never done it this way in the past, but I watched a couple of videos. It seems like a lot of guys like to do it this way, so I'm going to give it a shot because what I've been doing hasn't been giving me that great of a result. So hopefully this works out because this is a really cool knife, and if it had a really awesome hamon on it, it would be even cooler. That hamon is really starting to pop. Alright, now I'm going to go over to the buffer and polish this out with a brand new wheel and some white rouge. That is a nice hamon. I'm really happy with this. All right, let's put a handle on this sucker. I am beyond happy with this knife. I really want to keep it, but I just made one for myself, so I have to let this one go. It has a somewhat fine edge on it. I started off with 1/8 inch bar stock, so it's not as thick as I would probably make this style of knife in the future. But the great thing about that is that I'm sure it's going to slice really well. I haven't tried it yet, so let's see how she goes on a piece of paper. Oh yeah. Well, this definitely isn't the knife that I set out to make today, but even still, I'm really glad that I did. I really like this knife, and I'm definitely going to be making more like it in the future. I did make this knife to sell, so if you're interested in it, you can send me a message on Facebook at the Helm WS Facebook page. I will leave a link in the description. So I apologize for the complete and utter randomness of this video. It was supposed to be about making a chef's knife. But anyway, thank you all very much for watching. If you enjoyed what you saw today, I hope that you will consider subscribing to the channel and then hitting the notification bell so you can see when I come out with new videos in the future. As always, thank you all for watching. I will see you next time.